Yeah,
bit of a cough.
I keep losing my voice, which happened all last year.
So I can't even go back to see him.
Now when you're sick or have a sore throat or something, people really look at you though. Like
I know
like,
she
like,
just coughed and I just,
Oh,
I just went.
yeah, and mine's all allergies. I know what it is. It's
Oh,
every year, same
yeah.
thing happens. I lose my voice. And, yep.
Yeah.
It's like,
get some
Whatever.
t-shirts printed that says I have allergies or something.
yeah, back off. I have allergies.
There have been times when I've been out in the store and I wanted to actually have that as a sign.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Yeah, it's
so
supposed to be
stuck.
new symptoms,
Huh?
but this is not, like, this isn't new for me.
Yeah,
It's not COVID. I don't need to run in and get
Oh, she
tested.
has this every summer.
Yeah, so it's like, whatever. This is how it is.
are we,
We are live.
we're live?
I believe so.
All right.
It should be.
You're correct.
Yep.
Yep. Call the meeting to order. Adoption of agenda. Is there any additions? No. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Bryce, call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Minutes of previous meeting, July 16th. Is there any corrections, et cetera, on these minutes? No. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes as presented? Dan, call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Business arising from the minutes. Any discussion? Anything's come up?
The only thing that's happening is with respect to the permit for complete waste, we'll be conducting our inspection of the facility next week.
Okay,
Fire and
good.
myself, and I'm not sure when health is coming.
He's struggling to get health and safety codes to
Safety
come.
codes, but
But he's
myself and
working on
fire
it.
will be doing
Okay,
that inspection, so at least that part of it will be done.
good.
He's attempting to comply with the conditions.
Hello. Where can we sit you?
Yeah.
Is there any other discussion? No? Audrey, you were here last meeting, right?
I was here last.
Yeah. Do you have any discussion on the minutes? No?
I didn't get a chance to read it.
Oh, the minutes of the previous meeting? Anything? No? Okay, moving on to 4A, development permit, Kiera St. Louis, page 13.
Okay, so the purpose of this report is for the MPC to consider an application for a type E home-based business, i.e. Boreal Lash Parlor, within the R2 medium density residential district. I've given you all of the applicable portions of the land use bylaw with regards to home-based businesses. And if approved, this permit will be diarised for 6 months and come back for permanent approval at that time. In discussion, the planning department reviewed the application, and the applicant wishes to operate a lash extension business in her home. The goal is to keep the business small. She says she only wants to do one person a day. She'll use a bedroom in her her duplex home, her half of the duplex home, where equipment utilizing the provision of services will be set up and stored. She's indicated that her clients will arrive one at a time because she only is going to have one a day. There is an attached garage on site, however, the use will not extend to that. And her front driveway can facilitate parking for 2 vehicles as well as, of course, the one in the attached garage. So she'll have one site on-site parking for clients to park in. The applicant will be the only person employed by the business and working on site. Her hours in operation for, say, from Monday to Sunday, 9 to 9, because she's going to be flexible around her clients' timing that they want. And there's no other home-based businesses on this site. And as this meets with the regulations of the land use bylaw and also meets with policy statements in the MDP, we have no concerns and recommend that the MPC approve development permit 480720.
Can I get a motion? I'll make a motion. Any discussion? No, call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Four B, page 25, Jesse Surson.
Yep. So the purpose of this report is for the MPC to consider another home-based business, JSJ Contracting within the R1 Standard Detached Residential District for Jesse Surson, who owns his own home in the Northeast. And once again, there's the land use bylaw regulations. So we reviewed the application and he wishes to operate his contractor business, which he'll store his tools in his garage. And he'll use a bedroom in the home for an office. The applicant has indicated that he should not have any clients ever visiting his home. He will go to their site instead. There is a detached garage on site, and this is where he'll supply his tools and store his supplies and tools. The front driveway can facilitate parking for 3 vehicles. However, like I said, he has indicated that there should be no clients visiting his home, so there should be no parking issues. The applicant is the only person that is employed by the business, and his hours will vary day by day per job that he has. As this is a minimal as the planning department has no concerns with this application, we recommend that the MPC approve this development permit 490720.
I get a motion?
I'll make that motion as read, this 2 pages of it.
Any discussion? No? So have we covered motorized business equipment in the conditions?
Like a Bobcat or something
Yeah.
like that? No, there's nothing in the land use bylaw that speaks specifically to that type of equipment.
Because we're talking materials, tools.
In talking with Jesse, it did not sound like he had that big of tools. He's
Okay.
talking smaller, like fences, decks. Those are the kind of contractor jobs that he plans to be
Okay.
doing.
It could be something that we could consider adding to our home-based permit, the application form, just so we know
Right.
what kind of heavy equipment, if any, is involved.
Yeah, because I know going back on another one that we had
Oh.
in the southeast, we had issues.
What equipment do you use in your business? And he says hand tools and power tools.
Yeah,
What we could add, is there any machinery?
Yeah.
And to the application, that we kind of flush that out at the
Yeah.
application. Okay, we'll do that.
so does that amend the motion?
No,
No, because there's
Okay.
nothing in the land use bylaw.
there's nothing I can do from a
Okay.
regulation standpoint anyway. It'd just be more of we'd have to have the discussion with the applicant at that time about industrial type equipment being stored in a residential and how that would be an issue. But there isn't anything in the bylaw that speaks to that specifically.
Okay, specifically on the lawn,
Yeah,
like we've had before.
Yes.
Okay. Any more discussion? No? Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Or C, page 37, Winston, I'm not going to try say his last name.
Tech robe.
Tech Robe?
That's what he said. So the purpose of this report is for the MPC to consider a home-based business type E, the garage community fitness within the R1A low-density residential district. The land use bylaw regulations are there. So the applicant wishes to operate a fitness center from his garage with one-on-one instruction from his home. He'll use the attached garage where equipment employed in the provision of services will be set up and stored. He's indicated that he hopes to have between 1 and 4 people in his home each day. There's no detached buildings, on the site, and as such, no activity will be except for in the attached garage. The front driveway can facilitate parking for 3 vehicles, and the applicant has indicated that he only has 1 personal vehicle, so it can accommodate 2 parking spaces for clients visiting his home, so there should be no parking issues. The applicant is the only person that will be employed by the business working on site. He's not quite settled on exactly which days he will operate, but has suggested to start with his days of operation will be Monday to Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. And the planning department has no concerns with this application as well for number 500720.
Can I get a motion? Bryce? Any discussion? So he's talking 1 to 4 people, so there could potentially be 4 vehicles.
No, he has stated that they would arrive one at a time. It would be for one-on-one instruction.
Oh, okay, so
Is what-
not small groups?
No.
Okay,
No, that is not his intention.
okay. Anything else? No, call the question. Those in favor? Carried. 5A, land use bylaw, page 49, fire smart regulations.
All right, so the purpose of this report is for the MPC to provide council with a recommendation with respect to bylaw number 09-2020. So bylaw 09-2020 received first reading on May 5th and is scheduled for the required public hearing on August 18th. The bylaw will then be brought back to council in September for consideration of second and third reading. And that's in order to meet the grant deadline of September 30th that was provided by FRIA. So just a little bit of history. So back in 2017, we amended our municipal development plan to add policy statements with respect to Fire Smart. And in order to align these statutory plans, an amendment to the land use bylaw is now required. And December of 2018, we received a $30,000 grant from Forest Resource Impact Association of Alberta, or FRIA, and that is to add regulations to the land use bylaw with respect to Fire Smart. So then in March of 2019, we entered into a contract with Green Space Alliance to prepare draft regulations. We created a list of stakeholders who would be involved in the project, and GSA commenced review of the relevant planning documents, and we also created a Fire Smart project website and launched a survey. In June, the project was delayed last year until after fire season as we were hosting the high-level evacuees. In addition to that, any Fire Smart experts that we were trying to include in the process were engaged in wildfire situations in Northern Alberta. So September 11th, we held our first focus group session as well as a drop-in open house. GSA provided the town with the What We Heard report, which is a summary of the phase 1 public consultation events, which were a survey, a focus group session, and open house. I've attached that to this report for you as well. In December of 2019, GSA prepared Fire Smart stakeholder packages, which contained the first round of draft Fire Smart regulations. It was at that time that we decided to postpone the second focus group session until after Christmas. So in January of this year, our second focus group session was held. The purpose of this session was to take a look at the draft land use bylaw regulations. Overall, the regulations were fairly well received. However, there was some concern expressed with respect to section 2.6, which are the area B requirements. So area B is that area within the south expansion area of town, for anybody who's not familiar, or everything sort of south of Highway 2. Stakeholder members requested also additional information with respect to the costs associated with building Fire Smart. The consultant also stated additional pictures would be added to the regulations and so on. And then finally, it was agreed at that time that we would hold one more or a third focus group session, which wasn't originally planned for the project. So in March of this year, we held that third focus group session and reviewed the final draft. Consensus was reached among the stakeholder group or the focus group session. And in March, we also saw our first case of COVID-19 and a change in operations for the town of Slave Lake. So everything went on hold again. We applied for a second extension from FRIA, and that extension was granted to September 30th of this year. So we're now bringing the bylaw back to go through the public hearing process and second and third reading, and of course, a recommendation from the MPC to council. So page 3 of the bylaw goes into the amendments that are made, which are in bylaw number 09-2020, which is also attached for you. So the first amendment is to section 3. It adds definitions to the land use bylaw with respect to fire smart, and there's a number of them that are included in that bylaw for you. I won't go through each one of them. The second amendment is to section 13.1 of the land use bylaw, and it makes reference to development permit application requirements and other special requirements specified elsewhere in the bylaw. And this is where it gives the development authority the ability to ask for some information at the application stage to support the fire smart regulations. The third amendment is to section 13.8, and it adds regulations so that we may require a developer to undertake and submit a wildfire risk assessment as part of a subdivision or development of land. Number 4 is an amendment to section 13.9K, which is a variance of standards. It requires that where a variance results in a side yard setback of less than 1.2 meters for a principal dwelling or 0.6 meters for an accessory building, the applicant will be required to meet the Alberta Safety Codes Act, which is not new, as well as section 36C of fire smart regs. Number 5 is an amendment to section 24.2 of the land use bylaw regarding relocation of buildings, and adds regulations stating that the development authority may require a wildfire risk assessment if necessary. Number 6, this amendment to section 31.10, which is the subdivision of land section, adds regulations stating that the development authority may require a wildfire risk assessment as a condition of subdivision approval if necessary. Number 7 is amendment. This is adding section 36C fire smart regs. So this is the bulk of the change to the land use bylaw. This is where most of the meat and potatoes exists within the bylaw. So subsection 1 of section 36C requires that the development authority to refer to the fire smart development areas map for subdivision and development applications. And that map establishes area A and area B. Area A is pretty much most of the town of Slave Lake. That's north, all of the town of Slave Lake, north of Highway 2. And area B is all those lands within the South Expansion area, which are south of Highway 2. Subsection 2 allows the development authority to include conditions and standards that exceed those indicated in the fire smart regs. And this would be based on a wildfire risk assessment. So it would not be just a personal judgment type thing. It would be if there's a wildfire risk assessment that points out issues and concerns.
Just quickly, Lori, so you show on the map that east of town, there's a small piece of area B. Is that where the trailer court was?
Yeah, Phoenix Heights, yeah.
It's also a bit of a.
Yeah,
stand
sorry,
behind that.
my apologies. Yes, there is a small chunk of area B that fits in. The reason that is considered higher risk area B is because there's a stand of black spruce in that area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, just for a little history on that, the fire smart experts and the consultant basically drove the town and the outlying areas to see, and took the maps from the Flat Top Complex fire, which showed where the high fuel stand areas are.
Okay.
And then determined where the higher risk areas are
Yeah.
and where they're not. So that's how that map came about.
Okay.
The subsection 3 allows the development authority to require a developer to remove wildland fuels if necessary, and those would be identified in a wildfire risk assessment. And what I wanted you to keep in mind with respect to this is that when you're doing subdivision development, they're typically removing a lot of wildland fuels anyway for the development roads, installation of infrastructure, development of MR lands and so on and so forth. So it wouldn't be as much as it might seem it would be. Subsection 4 allows the development authority to require that all new developments have a Class A roof material. And just for clarification, Class A roof materials includes asphalt shingles. So already probably 98% of developments within our community meet the Class A roof requirement anyway, in the existing part of the community. Subsection 5 requires that all new developments shall separate coniferous trees by a buffer of 8 meters and be located a minimum of 7 meters from any structure. So that would be new developments in area. So just for clarification on what this really applies to, there would be no developments within area A that would be considered a new development subject to these regulations. This would all be in area B. And it would not include, for further clarification, empty undeveloped lots that exist within the Glory Land subdivision, because there's a couple, I think, that are not developed yet. Subsection 6 sets out regulations for new developments that are susceptible to wildfire hazards and are located within the Fire Smart Development Area A, that a wildfire risk assessment may be required. And that would be only in the event that we see substantial fuel source or some issue. But it's very unlikely we'll ever use that one, but it's there because things can change, right?
Yeah.
Over years, forests can grow back or whatever the case may be. Where the development is located within Fire Smart Development Area B, a wildfire risk assessment will be required. All wildfire risk assessments shall include recommendations on hazard mitigation, and those recommendations may be completed as part of the subdivision or development and may also be included as a condition of subdivision or development of land. Subsection 7 sets out regulations where the development authority will impose conditions of development for new developments that are susceptible to wildfire hazards, requiring establishment of a 1.5 meter non-combustible zone around the perimeter of all structures on the site. And all landscaping within that zone, just hang on one second, would be of a non-combustible type as recommended by Fire Smart Canada. Yeah, questions?
Are we talking the subdivision or are we talking individual lots? So for example, there's a new subdivision in area B. Do they have to have that risk assessment done initially, or is it when individual homeowners go and develop?
I would see the wildfire risk assessment all likely being done at the subdivision stage, and that the land developer at that point would be dealing with that. And I would not typically see us requiring it again at the development permit stage.
Okay, so the individual homeowners or home builders would not be.
They shouldn't, by that point, we should have dealt with it already and should have mitigated the wildland fuels. So then we should only be dealing with the new development of the structure itself and the new landscaping going onto the site.
If we're looking at a new development with individual lots, does so the individuals that are developing the lots and building on them, do they right now have to submit a landscape plan? Or is that part of their development agreement, is that they follow?
As part, a development permit would be issued, and that would basically say you would need to follow the Fire Smart
Okay.
regulations with respect to the landscaping
Yeah.
you want to put on your site,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Maintaining the 1.5 meter zone, not putting,
So they will always be
Spacing.
made aware that we have the Fire Smart
Yeah.
regulations in place, okay?
yes, absolutely. Subsection 8 sets out requirements where if demonstrated in a wildfire risk assessment that a proposed development in Area A is susceptible to wildfire hazards, that the exterior siding, decks, porches, and balconies may be constructed of fire resistive. So it's softer in Area A, recognizing the fact that we probably won't have too many of those, or maybe none. So it says may, and it's, whereas in subsection 9, if it's in Area B, it shall. They will be required to construct with fire resistive materials. New developments. So for clarification, this does not mean that if you're, you have a house in the southwest of town and you're replacing your deck, that will be telling you you have to build your deck of fire resistant materials. That's not what this means. It means new developments in Area A, only this would apply to.
Okay, so yeah, in the southwest, we've got some huge parcels of land. that
Yeah, so you
are-
may have a couple
are
of undeveloped
empty.
lots, that's
Yeah,
right. And
empty
maybe a
but
subdivision
adjacent.
occurs.
Yeah,
But because it's area A, the likelihood that we'd be applying any fire smart regulations would almost be nil. And there would be a requirement at the subdivision stage to do a wildfire risk assessment, or maybe, and maybe not. Like if it's right in the middle of the southwest and there's no, they're not within that wildfire risk area, we probably wouldn't even ask for one. And so there wouldn't be a requirement then to build, to do anything with
Yeah.
respect to, there has to be a fuel source, and we're going to be relying on updated reports. So they're going to have to go out and update those, the flat top
yeah.
tower report, because as the forests grow, we're going to get those stands back, and it may change where they're at, and will change where the wildfire risk is. So unfortunately, it's at this point in time, because we've fire smarted, our risk level is low, but it depends on what happens over time.
So what about that piece of treed property in the southwest? There's a huge area that's treed.
And I think it's mostly aspen, so
Talking
it's
about the one-
considered low risk.
The one that's by Sawridge Park Estates, yeah.
Between the Sawridge and then where the other trailer court was. Like there's that whole,
Sawridge Phase 2?
Yeah,
what you mean?
Storage phase 2, I think.
that whole treed area.
Yeah, and those
Is
are
that
private
all-
lands, and I don't believe that they were considered as part of the high-risk zone.
Okay,
Yeah, when we were going through the original workshop, it showed where all the high-risk
all
timber
over.
stands were, and there wasn't any
Nothing
timber
in town
stands there.
boundaries.
or deciduous.
Almost all of it was south of the highway, the timber
Yeah.
stands.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it's the strike, the ember strike, that's the
Yeah.
issue, right? Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Okay, so and then Section 8 amends, adds Section 36D, which is the development areas map, which we talked about with Area A and B. Amendment number 9 adds amends Section 59 with respect to landscaping. And just basically saying that it deals with the landscaping requirements under Section 36C. And the biggest one there is the separation of coniferous trees. Really, that's the big one, is that if you're going to have coniferous trees on your site, they have to be so far away from a structure and so far from each other in Area B. Number 10 is amendment to Section 6012, multifamily dwelling. And this is the landscaping requirements again. Section 79, or number 11, and the next one. So 10, 11, 12, and 13 all deal with the landscaping requirements, and it's basically the same stuff. It's just added to high-density residential, commercial, institutional, and industrial regulations so that we can deal with them depending on the type of subdivision and the type of development going ahead. And that's those are the amendments in a nutshell. And I just wanted to read over a few things under the recommendation here. So in October of 2018, Natural Resources Canada prepared a PowerPoint on the economic realities of Fire Smart. And this was a series that was done for Fort McMurray after their fire. The PowerPoint contains a table of costs for Fire Smart treatment of forested land. So this is actually mechanical or manual treatment of removing deadened down or spruce areas or whatever the case may be. So for mechanical treatment, you're looking at between $4,500 to $8,000 per hectare. For manual treatment, $8,000 to $12,000 per hectare. And then prescribed burning for light fuels was $100 to $200 per hectare. And for heavy fuels, $1,500 to $4,000. So these costs would be incurred by developers proposing subdivision on forested lands. They should be considered as well, I wanted to, in the context of the development where there would be construction of roads, installation of services, development of municipal reserve lands, et cetera. So some of the trees for sure would be gone from forested lands just in the process of doing the subdivision itself. During the focus group session as well, the consultant was asked to provide some information regarding the cost to renovate or retrofit existing developments and the cost to construct from new developments that include fire smart treatments. Fire Smart Canada is working on a report. However, they haven't released it yet. We're expecting it this year, but unfortunately it's not here in time for this discussion. So I did provide the Headwater Economic Report or pieces of it. Results of that report demonstrate that the cost of constructing new homes to be wildfire resistant isn't substantively different than the cost of typical construction. Now this is, the Headwater report is out of the States. I've attached a table for you as an attachment to this report. Where the costs get a little bit higher is when you're talking about renovating or retrofitting. So you've got an existing structure and you're trying to fire smart that, those costs were higher. As the vast majority of developments in Slave Lake would only be affected by the cost of new development. They wouldn't be affected by the retrofit charge.
And also as the demand for fire smart materials starts moving up, then of course there's the supply and demand issue, and then the costs could potentially be
Higher.
rising. Yeah.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
So on May 1st of this year as well, the Regional Fire Service conducted a fire demonstration on legacy lands adjacent to Highway 2, sorry. Demonstration included 4 structures that were placed within the field. So one structure had no fire smart treatment whatsoever. So it was wood walls with a roof, fire fuels within 1.5 meters of the perimeter. Second structure had metal siding and roof and door, and gravel within 1.5 meters around the structure. Third one had a sprinkler installed on the roof, and a fourth one was sprayed with a fire gel suppression chemical. I've attached that for you with photographs. Essentially, the grass was lit on fire and just allowed to spread to those structures. The structure that received fire smart treatments came out of the demonstration with no damage whatsoever. Structures that included the sprinkler and gel fire suppression treatment, both were damaged. However, they weren't destroyed by fire. And the structure that had no treatment whatsoever was completely destroyed. And then finally, the Fire Smart bylaw, I guess, represents new regulations for land use with respect to subdivision and development and the mitigation of wildfire spread within the community, especially those areas of significant risk such as Area B. The planning department recognizes that with the implementation of fire smart regulations, we're approaching new frontiers in development regulation. However, at some point, we must begin to make changes to reduce risks. The intent of the regulation is to mitigate the potential spread of wildfire in the community or to build Slave Lake better, which was sort of the motto that came about after the 2011 fire. Converging trends of hotter, longer, more severe fire seasons and growth in the wildland urban interface put more people and communities at risk to wildfire disasters. Laboratory research and evidence from post-fire assessments have demonstrated that local ignitability of the home itself and the nearby landscaping are major factors in determining home survivability in a wildfire. Land use bylaw regulations similar to those we are considering reduce wildfire loss, and more communities are considering their implementation. Beyond protecting individual homes, wildfire-related building codes and standards are likely to have many long-term benefits. Reducing wildfire losses can lessen the long-term and profound consequences and disruption borne at the local level following disasters such as lost business and property tax revenue, physical and mental health impacts, and damage to public infrastructure and private infrastructure. Constructing homes to modern wildfire resistant standards delivers additional benefits to homeowners and the environment, as many components are more sustainable, require reduced maintenance, and provide added energy efficiency. Today, the 2011 Slave Lake wildfire is considered one of Canada's top 10 disasters of all time, costing $735 million. Took at least 8 years to build back, most of the structures lost and the municipal infrastructure damaged, and the community is still recovering 9 years later. It's demonstrated repeatedly that fire smart principles are a proven method of reducing the risk of wildfire spread, and that the cost associated with fire smart for new construction are small in comparison to the total cost of the development itself, i.e. between 11,000 to 18,000 added cost for a fire smart build. And that's a new build, not a retrofit. Further, the cost of build fire smart versus rebuild the community after devastating losses is significantly less. The town of Slave Lake is all too familiar with disasters and their devastating effects. We know all too well the cost associated with fighting wildfires, rebuilding the community, and the emotional toll that comes with it. We are a progressive and dynamic community, and we have demonstrated that we learn from past experience, and that is evidenced in our disaster response planning. It's time we implement the knowledge gained from the 2011 wildfire into our long-range planning documents. As such, we're recommending the NPC supports the bylaw. Questions?
So I have one question. Okay, so we've got existing buildings in the area A. And there's a lot of coniferous growth around these buildings. In the event of a wildfire, is there anything set in place now where the authorities can go and have a lot of this coniferous growth removed?
No.
So will there ever be anything like that?
It may evolve over time where we would, right now, I think the approach is education with respect to fire smart. And when we issue a development permit for new homes, and unfortunately it's just new homes and mobile home placements and things like that, the fire smart landscaping regs and stuff go with the booklets and pamphlets. And we're trying to educate people so that they, you don't pile 15 cords of wood against the side of your house, and you don't plant, cedar trees and spruce right up against the siding, but it's going to take time. Yeah. But these current regulations don't deal with that. It might be something that evolves, further on as we get into it. But for now, that's not where we're at.
It's a good report.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion?
So I have a question. So we focused on what's going to happen within the subdivision and with the setbacks and fuel sources being removed and everything. So is there anything that makes the developer focus outside the subdivision that they want to develop, like create a buffer zone sort of thing and remove the fuel sources surrounding that subdivision?
Yeah, at the subdivision stage, it would depend on what the wildfire risk assessment comes back at. So if they're saying, that some of the ideas we've seen is that you could, to build a fire buffer, you could put a walking trail that, goes all the way around a subdivision and maybe connects up with another walking trail in another subdivision. It may require them to reduce, so do some fire smarting of the area around the subdivision, or work in cooperation if it's Crown land or with other developers to reduce that spread. But yeah, most of it will deal with what's actually within the subdivided lands. And I don't know to what extent, I haven't seen a wildfire risk assessment that goes beyond in a subdivision. So I would think it would take some negotiation and discussion with the developer and adjacent land owners about what that might look like.
Yeah, good
So,
question, yeah.
Question then, just on top of that, if that subdivision developer can't come to some agreement with the landowner beside to reduce and fire smart the area, what happens?
I would have to ask the consultant how that works. I think the wildfire risk assessment is supposed to come with recommendations. So a wildfire expert is supposed to conduct those. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming they're going to come with recommendations that require I'm just thinking from the negotiation of subdivision stage. I don't know. I don't think we can compel the adjacent property owner at that point. So he'd only be able to deal with what's in his development. So then what would mean is that if the fuel source is outside of his boundary, he can do what he can within his lot. It means the developments within the subdivision would have to be built with fire resistant materials to reduce the risk, to
Okay.
mitigate. Yeah.
So it just doesn't stop it. They just have to find a way to make it work.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then just further on that though, so if somebody did have that fuel source though, they had some coniferous trees, you would still have to maintain that 7 or 8 meter setback from their trees as well, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is only going to be on new development, or are you looking at the existing town?
No, and most of the town is in Area A, so it's at the most, very little risk. It's sort of if there's a good spot to be in with respect to fire smart regulations, this is probably the best case scenario because 90% of our developed or 95% of our developed mass is within Area A, and it's at the lowest risk. So this affects new developments, almost all of which will be in development Area B. There's a small section along Highway 88 that's in development Area B. But most of it's vacant, undeveloped. So this is going to apply to new subdivisions and new developments within those subdivisions.
So the group that did this, they actually did on-site research. They drove around the
Yes.
town and they logged.
We took them around. We had Ryan Coots, who's our fire smart lead, take them and we went with them and we toured all of those areas. And then of course they took the flat top tower wildfire that whole massive document and looked at that as well. And the maps included in that. So a lot of research went into where are the big wildfire stands and how far is the ember projection areas, and all of those things together defined what's Area A and what's Area B. So a lot of pre-work to get to here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, can I get a motion? I'll make that. Oh, Dan, you can make the motion.
Yeah, I do just have a comment. So, I do agree with, the fire smart principles in general. I am concerned though about the red tape and the cost that it would add to new developments. Myself, I saw the value in building a fire smart house, so I did that. I put fire resistant siding on. I built my deck out of composite material and added about $30,000 to the cost. So it's just a matter for me about finding that balance. And because we don't want to deter new development either, and that's my concern. So just kind of a comment that I thought I'd put out there. I think we've done a lot of the right things in education. 10 years ago, I would have thrown cedars up towards the side of my house, and I won't do that anymore because of a lot of the fire smart educational information out there. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on the matter.
Could I ask the question, Bryce, would you have an idea what that kind of looked like in the overall scheme? Was that like 10% of the cost, or would you have an idea what that overall
It's
impact was?
probably about 5% of the
Oh,
cost.
5%?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those were the numbers I was trying to get for Alberta.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on the house. 'Cause
I
Different areas of Alberta
Yeah.
will have different
Yeah.
enhanced costs. Up here in Slave Lake, everything, we don't have anything readily available. to
Yes.
us.
I guess it depends on the house too. If your house has lots of curves, right, you're going to have more siding on the outside. If you're just building a house with 4 walls, it's obviously going to come in a lot cheaper. But
Yeah.
I am concerned about, the added red tape and adding a cost onto the homeowner. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, because the assessment that we have here on the last page shows a 2% reduction in cost.
Sorry?
The last page. shows
Yes.
2% reduction in
This came out of the United States. That's what these numbers are. This isn't for Canada. Is that what you're asking, Syed?
Yeah. so-
Yeah. Yeah, we won't have, this is the Headwaters report, and we won't have something for Canada for a few months yet. Fire Smart Canada's coming out with it, but it's not been released.
Okay, any more discussion?
Well, just to elaborate on what Bryce said, like, excellent report. It's very thorough, but that's where I waver, like how you do want to turn down a whole new development because of they couldn't afford to come through with it. And I'd love to see what the Canada numbers are, right? I don't think it's going to be a 2% reduction. It'd probably 10% increase. That's livable. 30%, probably not for a developer, right? So Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think the 2% reduction is because of some of the, where the material that costs the most is the decking. Composite decking, that's where the costs are. So when they balance it out, but yeah, I don't think we'll probably see a 2% reduction either. I think we'll probably see,
I'm guessing 10%.
probably 5 to 10%,
I'm
right? I
guessing
think is what we're
10%
probably
because-
looking at on the grand scheme.
I think when I was looking at it, they were taking into consideration in the report is if somebody had used cedar shakes and stuff like that and built a wood fence, those are things that cost, in those cases, they cost more to build with those materials than building with
Yeah.
typical fire smart materials.
Yeah,
But-
wood fence is more
But the average
expensive than
person
chain.
doesn't build with cedar
Yeah.
shakes anyways, right? So.
Yeah. No, and like we said, the roofing material already fits. So that was a win, I thought, for us, is because asphalt shingles are already considered a Class A.
Yeah, that would be a shock if they wouldn't allow
No, they
asphalt
definitely
and-
are.
Yeah,
But I think the reality is like, I think we have to start somewhere. And I don't know what that looks like, but we need to start. And the second thing is we can hold off, but I don't think it's long before insurance companies in Canada are not going to insure you if you haven't fire smarted your build.
or if the province of Alberta itself comes.
It's already,
along with,
yeah, it's already,
With-
yeah, they may come in with
Yeah.
codes, and I know it's happening in the US already.
Yeah.
And you can't buy insurance anymore.
So do you want everybody in town paying a premium so some developer doesn't have to pay 5 or 10% more for his development then?
Yeah, and you got to think about that too. I mean, it gets built into the price of the home at the end of the day. So you don't pay 500,000 for your home, you're paying 550,000 for your home instead, or whatever it works out to. But you also have the choice whether you want to live in the wildland, in area B or area A as well.
yeah,
Anyway, those are my thoughts.
yeah. Okay, any more discussion? Dan made the motion. Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Bryce and Sean, do you want that recorded?
Sure.
Okay, carried. You're opposed? Oh, okay, so that's three opposed.
So it's defeated.
It's,
So you don't support the bylaws, what that's saying. If it's a tie vote, it's a defeat.
3-3.
oh, is it?
Are you opposed, you said?
1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's unusual that we have an even number as well.
Yeah.
but we do. So it's considered a defeat,
It's defeated.
non-support. Okay. All righty.
Okay, 6 proposed subdivisions
We don't have any.
and 7 other business. 8 MPC development concerns. 9, a next meeting, August 10th.
And at this point, we don't have any agenda items, but
Never know what'll happen.
we may have, so
Okay.
see how that goes. We will let you know.
Yep. Adjourned. 5:46.